Hello everyone, if you're new to my channel, consider liking and subscribing. It will make me feel wonderful if you do that. Thanks. By the way, I also have another Naruto and Luffy fanfiction channel. If you are interested, link is in the description.
Promise by Anima Nebbioso. The Straw Hats meet a marine girl who Luffy supposedly knows. It's me! Luffy! I don't know any Luffy. That's funny, he laughed. He stopped when she didn't laugh with him. Can you guess what happens next? They kidnap her. Huge shout out to all the warlords of this channel. You know who you are. Want to stand among legends? Join the channel membership and show your support. Adios!
Riku awoke to the sound of the alarm. Today is the day, she thought to herself. Climbing out of bed, she looked to the top bunk and saw her blonde roommate stir in her sleep. "Oi, Chaki, wake up, it's testing day," she shouted to her friend as she pulled out her Marine's justice coat. "5 more minutes, Mum," she mumbled in her sleep. Riku sighed. Climbing to the top bunk, she took a hold of the sheets and pulled them hard. Chaki went over the railing and fell onto hard ground. Ouch! What was that for Riku? She glared at her roommate rubbing her side that she landed on. "Today is testing day, we don't want to be late now, do we?" Riku said as she jumped down and tossed her coat to her. Chaki put on the traditional uniform white dress shirt, blue neckerchief, dark blue pants, and the justice coat. While Riku put on the standard uniform for new recruits, because for her it was more comfortable. This was a white short-sleeved shirt with the Marine sign on the back, with a blue neckerchief, dark blue pants and a baseball cap that says Marines on it. She put her justice coat over it. "What rank are you going into next again, Chaki?" Riku asked as they walked down the hallway to the testing site. "Lieutenant Commander," she simply stated, looking ahead to their destination, tying her hair up in a bun. "Hey, no need to be so uptight," Riku said as she waved to passing Marines. "How about you, Riku? What's your next rank?" she asked. "Secret." She smiled towards her friend. Chaki, who was still mad about the way Riku woke her up, was getting annoyed but didn't say anything. While the two were talking, they didn't notice 2 people running and ran into them. "Hey, watch where you're going," Chaki shouted as she glared at the 2 boys who were in chore boy shirts. The 2 boys visibly quivered under her gaze. "Haha, don't mind her. She's not in a good mood since I woke her up," Riku said, hoping they would calm down. "You threw me off the bunk," Chaki shouted back. "I didn't throw you. I simply tugged on your blanket. Anyway, sorry we weren't watching," Riku said, turning back to the 2 on the ground. "Tug my butt," Chaki mumbled. It's okay," the pink-haired boy said. Riku reached both hands out to help each one up. The blonde one refused and scrambled to his feet while the pink one took her hand was pulled up, and then they both ran. "I wonder what that was about," Riku wondered. "For today's test you will be fighting a Marine who is the same rank as you. Whoever wins will be promoted. After the battle, injuries will be tended to over there." The Marine man person pointed to an area where tables, chairs and beds were set up. A lady with short red hair waved to the Marines in line. Riku raised her hand. "Riku, what are you doing?" Chaki whispered to her friend. "Question," Riku shouted to the man up front. "What?" he asked her. She took 1 step forward out of line. "I was told that Yumi Gaia, a doctor, was going to be treating our wounds for today," she stated with a straight voice. "You were told right, but she left early saying she had something important to do, and was excused," he said. She then stepped back into line. The battle started, and people fought for their ranks. Riku and Chaki watched from the sidelines. "Why do you do that?" Chaki asked, her bad mood passed. "Do what?" she asked in the same tone Chaki did when she answered Riku's question. "Hey, no need to be so uptight," Chaki said with a smirk on her lips. Riku smiled slightly and chuckled. "Why do you ask about that doctor?" Chaki asked after some silence passed. Riku sighed. "Don't tell anyone, okay? I've had some bad experience with doctors in the past, and I trust very few people to take care of my wounds. And Gaia is just one of those few." She looked to see Chaki's reaction. She was staring at her in surprise. "What's so surprising?" Riku asked her. "You have a fear," Chaki shouted, smiling. "Yeah, everyone has a fear," Riku said, laughing slightly at her friend's reaction. "How come I never knew of this? I've been your roommate for what, 2 years? You seem to be afraid of nothing. Spiders, snakes, blood. And you seem to be good at everything. Fighting, making friends, helping others. You never seem to get mad or sad. Chaki was jumping up and down about her new discovery. Riku laughed. Well, believe me, there's actually a lot of things I can't do, she said to her friend. Chaki's eyes widened and she stood staring at Riku with her big purple eyes, ready to listen. But I'm not telling you, Riku said, and Chaki just made the puppy dog face. Next, Lieutenant Yamasaki Chaki versus Lieutenant Goto Amiko for Lieutenant Commander. That's you. Riku told her friend, who looked over to the field. Standing there was another girl about her height, brown hair tied into a ponytail. There she was holding a sword, looking Chaki straight in the eye. Go beat her up, Riku encouraged as Chaki started walking to the arena. Chaki took out a gun and got in a fighting stance. When Amiko saw this, she smirked as if this was her win. Start. Amiko charged at Chaki, sword in hand. Chaki dodged to the left and shot, but the bullet was blocked by the sword. As Chaki ran backwards, she kept shooting, but the bullet was either dodged or blocked. Amiko chased her and took a swipe from the right, cutting Chaki's left side deep. Give up? Amiko asked. Nope, Chaki said, holding her side. Amiko took the sword one more and went for a horizontal blow, but it was blocked by Chaki's gun. As she held it with both hands, they both jumped back and Chaki's emptied out her gun and reloaded it with 2 bullets. Amiko started laughing as she saw this. Do you think you can hit me with those 2 bullets? She asked. Chaki never replied but aimed the gun and shot her first bullet, which Amiko decided to block with her sword. As the bullet came in contact, the sword shattered. While Amiko stared in shock, Chaki took this chance and ran up to her, holding the gun to her head. Sir, I think this match is over, Riku called to the man, who was also slightly amazed. He nodded his head. Winner is Lieutenant Commander Yamasaki Chaki. Congratulations, Riku shouted, running up to her friend. Thanks, Chaki said, holding her side. Riku looked over to Chaki's side. Aw, sorry, I forgot that you're bleeding. It's just that the fight was so cool. Riku chuckled as she scratched her cheek. Riku went to her left side and helped her walk to the little infirmary. Our last battle for the day: Captain Mikazuki Riku versus Captain Kaneko Michio for Commodore. I guess that's me, Riku said as she pulled her cap down a little. Wonder who I'll be facing. When she looked over to the field, someone was already standing there. Be right back, Chaki, she waved as she ran off. Kick their butt, Chaki shouted after her. She heard Riku laugh in the distance. When Riku got a closer look, she saw that the opponent was a boy with red hair sticking out in every direction. She looked in curiosity, as did the boy did. Who are you? She asked. I'm Kaneko Michio, he shouted to her. What? But Michio sounds like a girl's name. Michio is a boy's name. What about Riku? Isn't that a boy's name? He sneered at her, then looked at her outfit. Sir, he called out to the man. I think there's a mix-up. This girl isn't a captain. She's a seaman first class. Also, aren't I supposed to fight a man? He said as Riku stared at the sir, waiting for his answer. The sir checked his clipboard. It says here that she is a Commodore and that she's allowed to fight any gender. Riku is one of the strongest people I know, and she could beat you to a pulp. Chaki shouted from the sidelines. Lies, he shouted to Chaki. What, are you afraid to fight a girl? Chaki shouted again. He didn't answer. Thank you, Riku smiled and waved to her roommate. Riku turned back to Michio and watched as he put on brass knuckles. He looked to her. What are you looking at? Nothing, she simply said and pulled out fingerless gloves. Huh? You're going to fight with those? He laughed at her. Why does Iki always fight those who think that they're superior? Ready, start. At the sound of start, Michio kept on throwing a barrage of punches. Riku barely dodging them. She could find no opening and her speed was slow. Michio punched her in the gut. When that happened, he took her and threw her on the ground. See, she can't fight, he shouted at her. As Riku was getting off the ground, he saw this and took another punch at her. When she saw this coming, she took her justice coat and threw it in front of her, causing him to punch the coat. She went up and kneed him in the gut. He staggered backwards and started to run at her with his barrage of attacks again. Her speed was faster than before. While he noticed this, she did an uppercut. With such force his feet actually left the ground. Riku also thought she heard a crack but decided to ignore it. She saw Michio holding his jaw, and when he looked kind of frightened but also amazed, she grinned at him. "Sir," she heard Chaki call. And the winner is Commodore Mikazuki Riku. Riku turned to Chaki in the infirmary and waved with both hands in the air, smiling like an idiot. "I did it." "That was great, Riku," Chaki said as they walked to go get some lunch. "Really? I thought your battle was cooler. Especially how you broke the sword with one bullet. How'd you do it?" Riku asked as they got in line and got their food. "I did it with this," she said as she pulled out a bullet and placed it on the table. "What's that?" Riku asked as she ate her rice. "It's a special bullet made out of kairoseki." "Really?" Yeah, she nodded as she placed it back in her pocket. "Mikazuki Riku, please report to Marineford Tower." "What was that?" Chaki asked. "I don't know, but I have to go," Riku said, standing up. "You don't say." Chaki waved to her friend. As Riku was about to reach her destination, she saw 3 figures standing, most likely waiting for her. As she started walking, the bigger one of the 3 turned to her and threw a punch in her direction. Riku's eyes narrowed as she saw this coming and moved to the side slightly, hitting the arm, so the blow went in another direction. "I see you've been training, Riku," the man said as he laughed. Riku immediately recognized the voice, because it was the voice of her teacher. "Garp sensei," she yelled out of surprise. "What?" The 2 people she forgot about shouted. She looked behind Garp to see a blonde and pink-haired boy. "Hey, you guys are the 2 I ran into earlier this morning." "Riku, these 2 are my new apprentices," Garp stated. "Really?" She turned to stare at the 2. "I wish you well in your life," she said as she saluted as she started to walk away, but Garp stopped her. "You're not getting off that easily," he said as he pulled her back by the back of her collar. Her face slightly paled, and her stomach felt funny. "You're going to help me show them what my training is like. Being the older student, it's your job," he stated as he started pulling her back to the training grounds. "Riku-san, are you sure you're okay?" Kobe stuttered as he held the first aid kit in his hand. "Yeah, I'm fine. You can put that away, you know," she said, eyeing the case carefully. "But your wounds," he said, staring at the cut and bruises. "Kobe, just let it go. Did you not see how she held up against Garp?" Helmeppo whispered harshly to his friend. Kobe scrambled to go and put the first aid kit away after he saw Riku glaring at what he thought was him, but was really the kit. "Riku, I heard you're now a Commodore," Garp stated as he walked up to the trio. "Really? That's amazing." Kobe looked up in admiration, because he was shorter than her. "It's kind of scary though," Helmeppo mumbled to himself. Thanks," Riku said. "You should really get those cuts patched up," Garp said as she stood up from her seat. Awkward silence swept through the training ground. "Sorry, but I have to get going now. It's getting kind of late, Chaki will be worried, maybe," she sighed. Garp stared at her. He knew she was lying. She just wanted to get out of there. And she stared back. "Anyway, I have to go," she said as she started walking, and when she was out of sight, Kobe and Helmeppo breathed out a sigh from the awkwardness. "Garp? What's wrong with Riku? I mean, why isn't she happy?" She passed the test to Commodore Wright. He didn't think Garp was going to answer, but he did. "Riku doesn't know what she wants in her life. She doesn't know what she wants to do when she gets older," Garp said, which surprised the 2 apprentices. "What do you mean she doesn't need to know what she wants to do? She's part of the Marines," Helmeppo asked. "She believed she didn't have a choice, but doesn't everyone have a choice?" Garp glared at Kobe and Helmeppo for asking so many questions. "Do you have time to do this? Give me 100 laps," and they scrambled away to follow their teacher's order. Riku quietly walked into the room, hoping not to wake Chaki up, and then the lights suddenly turned on. And Riku was meeting with blue eyes. "I come in peace. Please don't hurt me," she said as she raised both hands in the air. "What are you talking about?" Chaki sleepily asked. Nothing," Riku said, slightly embarrassed. "What the heck happened to you?" Chaki asked as she saw Riku's usually straight brown hair messed up. Chaki said as she started to climb to her bunk. "Training," Riku replied as she walked to her bed. "Training," Chaki simply said. "Yeah, why?" Riku looked to her on the top bunk. "You're always training. Every day, why don't you get out sometimes?" "Hey, I get out more than you do." "Not really." "Shoot? Well, okay." Bang, wow, what the heck was that? "Well, you said shoot, so I thought I was supposed to shoot." "No, When I meant shoot I forgot my gloves. Oh, well you should probably go get them before someone steals them. Ya don't say, Riku said as she ran off in the direction of Garp's training ground. I wonder how Luffy is doing. Why are you wondering about that now? Because Luffy is my friend. Riku could hear two voices talking as she started to reach her destination, which was the training room she uses when she fights Garp. When she turned the corner she saw Kobe and Helmeppo, both still in their chore boy uniforms, cleaning the wood floor. Hey, she said as awkward silence filled the air when they saw her. Riku, what are you doing here? I left my gloves here. She was thinking of what they were just talking about. Here. Kobe picked up her gloves off the floor and gave her them, but she didn't leave. This, Luffy, is he a friend of yours? Riku asked, causing the two boys to stiffen. Finally Kobe answered, yes. Hey, I'm only asking a question, nothing to get so worked up about, she said, trying to calm down the shaking Kobe. She doesn't know, both thought to themselves. Luffy, I feel like I've heard that name before though. She placed her finger on her chin. No you haven't, it's getting really late and your wounds still need to heal. I think you should get some rest, Kobe said really fast as he ushered her out the door with the help of Helmeppo, who was nodding his head in agreement. I remember, Luffy is a pirate, she shouted, causing the two boys to pale. Riku then turned to the two boys who were still and quiet, waiting on what she thinks. You know, the penalty for befriending a pirate is death. She stared at them with an evil smile graced upon her lips. Brown eyes locked onto their prey. They turned white as a ghost. Please, don't tell anyone, Kobe cried. Don't kill us, Helmeppo said after. What? You took that serious? I was just joking, I just made that up, she said laughing. So you won't kill us? What are you talking about? I could never kill you. But there is a penalty for being friends with a pirate, you know. What is it? Helmeppo asked. I don't know, she stated. But don't worry, your secret's safe with me. Just be sure not to get too close to this Luffy, he's a pirate after all. Luffy-san is not bad, Kobe said, defending his friend, and clenching his fist. She saw this action and decided not to push Kobe any further. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to insult you or your friend, she said with a slight hint of sadness in her voice. I better get going. My first mission is coming up in a week, so I need to get training. I hope to see you guys soon, she waved while she was walking back to her room. When she got back, Chaki was already fast asleep on the top bunk. Riku was beat and tired, so when her face hit the mat, she too fell fast asleep. When she woke up, she and Chaki started their daily training. Run, push-ups, gun training, sword training, and sparring. Riku was wearing her white short-sleeved Marines shirt and long dark blue pants tucked into her dark brown boots, while Chaki was in the same attire. Chaki, I got to go, it's about the time I go see my sensei for training, Riku said as she took a drink from her water bottle. Chaki smirked. I told you, it's training, and training for you. She also took a drink. Riku just smiled back at her friend before packing her things and going to Garp's training ground. While Kobe and Helmeppo were trying to land a hit on Garp, they didn't notice someone walk in. Mind if I join you? Riku said, causing the two to jump. Riku-san, are you doing okay? Kobe asked, being the nice person he was. I'm doing great, she said as she dropped her knapsack on the ground and started putting on her gloves. Garp quickly came behind her and tried to hit her in the head. But she saw this coming and ducked, then swung her leg, which Garp easily grabbed and threw her into the nearby brick wall, smashing it to pieces. Kobe and Helmeppo looked at the broken down wall. She's dead, Helmeppo cried. There's no way we can beat this guy. Kobe just stood there shaking. Seconds passed by, turning into minutes, as they stared at the broken wall. Ouch! Who put a wall here? Riku said as she lifted herself from the pile of rubble. Hey, are you going to help me or what? She asked, looking at Kobe and Helmeppo. The two were as white as a sheet as they stared in disbelief. Riku-san, that was amazing, Kobe said as she started to apply her bandages to herself after arguing with Garp about a doctor. Really, you did pretty well yourself, she simply said, tightening the bandages. Really, yeah, really, you will become a great Marine someday, she said, finishing up her last wounds. What about me? Helmeppo cried, listening to their conversation. You too. She smiled to him. What made you join the Marines, Kobe? She said, turning back to the blushing boy. I want to become an admiral. He blurts out. Then his face turned red, like a tomato. Hey, there's nothing to be embarrassed about, she said, trying to get him to calm down while Helmeppo was laughing at how Kobe's face was red. Are you sure? Kobe asked, finally calming down. Yeah, I think it's great that you dream big. Also, I think you'll be able to D. She smiled at him and ruffled his hair. Riku, will you be my friend? He asked out of the blue, bowing. What? She asked, suddenly shocked. I mean, I don't have any friends here except Helmeppo, he said, his face turning red again. And I know what you're talking about, it's just that I thought we were already friends. But to answer your question, yes, she answers, laughing. Thank you, Kobe said while bowing. Ha ha ha. I don't think friends bow to each other when saying thank you, she said, laughing harder. Sorry, he said, bowing again. Stop it, why you're making me laugh, she said between breaths. Wow, a week sure does fly, right? Riku asked her blonde friend standing next to her. Yeah, Chaki said, looking up in awe at the big ship that they were going to board. Riku, Kobe called, running to the docks with Helmeppo. Yo, Kobe. What's up? She asked with one hand raised up in greeting. I just came to say goodbye. She stared at him with blank eyes. Is there something wrong with that? He asked, frightened. Hey, Kobe's just trying to be nice, Helmeppo defended his friend. I know, it's just that you ran all the way here, and it looks like you haven't wasted a breath, she said, smiling. Then it looks like my training's working, Garp said, walking up to the fore. Riku smiled to her teacher. Probably. A sailor came up to the 5. Commodore, the ship is ready. Riku nodded in response. It looks like it's time for us to go. Ready, Chaki? Chaki nodded with a smile full of excitement. Good luck, Riku, Kobe called as she was walking onto the deck. Riku turned around to face the 3. Kobe waved both hands in the air while Garp raised one hand slightly. A breeze blew by, making her and Chaki coat flap. See you soon, become stronger by the time I come back, she smiled and waved as the boat pulled away. When Marineford was nothing but a speck, Riku turned to her lieutenant commander. So Chaki, where are we headed first? She grinned at her friend. Nay. Chaki, I'm hungry and bored, Riku whined as she sunk onto her desk. Chaki, who was getting irritated seeing as it was only their 3rd day at sea, decided to do something about the annoying Commodore. Oi, you there? The blonde called to the Marine standing behind her, waiting to give his report to the lieutenant commander and Commodore. How much farther until we reach Dia Island? Why, yes. It seems that one of the crew spotted the island just a few moments ago. It is estimated we will be reaching the island in 30 minutes. He saluted to the 2. At this, the brown eyes on the Commodore seemed to light up, and she instantly dashed past Chaki and the sailor to the deck, whose eyes were wide from the speed at which she left at. That girl just won't sit still, Chaki mumbled under her breath as she climbed the wood stairs to the deck, her ponytail and Marine's coat swaying with every step. She saw the 17-year-old Commodore leaning over the painted wood railing and went to stand next to her. She noticed that her friend was wearing black capris, with a white t-shirt and a cap that says Marines on it over her brown hair that reached past the shoulders. Where's your uniform? And by uniform she meant the coat. Hey Chaki. Where are we? The beaches here are so sparkly, Riku shouted with stars in her eyes, very much ignoring Chaki's question. She's such a kid, Chaki thought to herself while sweat dropping. It's Dia, Island. It produces a lot of money from the mining caves they have in the beautiful beaches. Ooh, she said in amazement, her eyes getting brighter, so bright that Chaki thought she lost conscious for a while. Then she remembered. Hey, weren't you just in your uniform in the office? Yeah, why? You change fast, Chaki shouted, jumping back a bit. All the while the crew wondered how they ended up with such weird lieutenant and Commodore. Let's go, shouted the 2 girls, arm in arm, both had one leg in the air ready to step. Wait a second, what am I doing? Chaki shouted, and then turned her attention to Riku. You were just about to go to the beach with me, she said, smiling. You know, we're supposed to be working, Chaki said, sweat dropping. Dia Island is a hot spot for pirates. That's why we came here, Chaki informed. I thought we just came here to go to the beach. That's why I manipulated told you to get change, she said in a monotone voice, then smiled. Chaki, just having noticed that her hair was down, and she was wearing a light blue tank top and jean shorts and also had a cap on like Riku. While Riku was wearing the same thing except she had one of those floating tube things around her. When did I? Then she looked to the culprit again, Riku. She laughed nervously. Ehehehe, well, I'll be at the beach if you need me. She turned to run, but Chaki caught her by the collar of her shirt. But I don't want to work, Riku whined as Chaki pulled her onto the ship. I want to play at the beach. Work is work, talk normally, your bad grammar is giving me headache. And to prove her point she rubbed her forehead. Everything was silent. Chaki turned to the girl who was behind her. She's gone, Chaki cried. Lieutenant. Is something wrong? A nearby marine asked. Chaki turned to him, the dark aura rolling off her as her eyes were on fire. Find her, she yelled. Riku chuckled a little at the sound of Chaki's voice coming from the ship. And she says I don't get out much. She shifted the knapsack on her shoulder, and then pulled out a map from her pocket. Tourists Must See was on the cover of her map. Dia Island is famous for its diamond beaches. The sun is always blazing on this summer island. While the ocean waters are nice and cold, this SA must see. Okay. To the beach. She pointed forward, but realized she was going the opposite direction. When the view of the sandy beaches came into her sight, her eyes were sparkling. She took off her shoes and touched the sand. It was soft and squishy under her feet. She ran towards the ocean and tripped. She looked up to see a little girl with red hair into pigtails and a little older than the girl. Boy with dark brown hair that was sticking out in all direction. And underneath her was a sandcastle. She looked back to the little girl who started sniffling, which soon broke into a sob. Hey, what do you think you're doing? The boy shouted at her, fists clenched. Sorry, I didn't mean to break your sandcastle, Riku told the boy who was trying to get the girl to calm down. Hey, don't cry. Riku tried to help. She moved closer to the girl. Waha! The girl started to bawl harder. Get out of here, the boy shouted at her with a shooing motion. Riku froze in her spot on top of the sand castle. Waha! The girl sniffled a little. Waha! And watched as the older lady started crying. What's wrong? She asked Riku, who stopped crying but kept on a sad face. I lost my coupons for free ice cream, Riku quietly said as she stared at the sand, then looked back at the two children. We can help you look for it, the little girl said. But after I broke your castle you shouldn't have to. It's okay. We can always make a new one. Alright Tamo ni. She looked up to the boy, who just nodded silently watching Riku like a hawk. Thank you. Riku wiped her tears away, and stood up. Can I ask your name? She bent down so she was head to head with the girl, who nodded. I'm Sumiko, and this is my brother Tomotsu. She introduced her brother and herself with a smile. Now that she thought about it, they may have looked different but the eyes were the same. They both had dark brown eyes. I'm Riku, she said and returned a smile. Do you think you know where you lost it? Sumiko asked. It must have fallen out of my pocket when I accidentally crashed into your castle, Riku explained. How about we check around here first then? Sumiko said. Riku nodded and started checking around her. Tamo ni, you should help too. Sumiko told her brother when she saw he wasn't helping. He just turned his head in the opposite direction and started digging in the ground. After a few minutes of digging. I found it, Sumiko shouted, waving the coupon in the air. But Riku was nowhere to be seen. Let me see, Tomotsu said and held out his hand. His sister placed the coupon in his hand and he studied it carefully. Then took the coupon and placed it in his pocket. Come on Sumiko. He took her wrist and started to pull her to the direction of town. But what about our Riku-san? She asked with a worried voice. Forget about that, oh Bakken, too, found you, oh Chaki, you didn't change back into your uniform, nice, Riku gave a thumbs up. Aho, 3, that's not the point. You have to get back to the ship, Chaki said as she watched Riku like a hawk for any means of escape. What? But I'm eating right now, Riku replied. Right now Riku was sitting at a bar in a restaurant eating noodles. I don't care if you're eating or not, Chaki then reached down and grabbed one of Riku's legs. This immediately caught Riku's attention. She grabbed a hold of the bar table and held on while Chaki was trying to pull her off. It's time for work. No, I don't want to work. Then why'd you join the Marines? Chaki stopped pulling, waiting for her answer. I don't know. You don't know? Really, is that the best answer you can come up with? Crash, sorry Chaki, I'll come, just please don't take out your guns. Riku bowed in apology. That wasn't me. Chaki quietly said. They looked each other in the eye, nodded to each other and ran out the door. Hey, you didn't pay for your food, the restaurant manager shouted at them. Sorry, put on my tab will ya? Riku shouted back. Okay. He sighed. Riku, you don't have a tab. Chaki told her as they ran. I know. Riku smiled and sped up faster. Riku, Chaki also went faster. When the two arrived at the scene of the crime, they saw a child and two pirate crews. When CP into action, Riku pulled her down into a nearby bush. What are you doing? It's called observing. Riku's voice became serious. Sheesh, talk about personality switch. But Chaki knows Riku well enough that when the times get tough she becomes determined. Chaki watched from the bushes of what was about to unfold. Chaki, have you contacted the crew? Already have. She replied holding up a Den Mushi. The two crews were talking so far. One of them gave off a bad aura, while the other didn't look like a pirate crew at all. But Riku could tell, by the way they talked to their comrades, and how they are one group. While she was watching, the child there turned around and Riku could see her face clearly. The red hair and dark brown eyes that pull you in. Samiko, she whispered. Who? Chaki turned to Riku. Where's Tomotsu? She started looking around for him. Like I said, who? Chaki asked again. They're kids I met at the beach. Riku said hurriedly. Chaki just nodded and went back to watching. Just then one of the pirate groups pulled a kid out. He had dark brown hair, sticking out all over, dark brown eyes, and he looked beat, bad. Tamo ni, Samiko cried. Riku was about to step out, but Chaki stopped her. Best not to get involved yet. Let the two crews take each other out. A boy stepped out from the pirate crew on the opposite side and put his hand on the little girl's head. Riku studied him. He was wearing a red vest, trousers, and a straw hat. Straw hat? She tilted her head slightly. The boy and two of his crew members stepped up. Riku and Chaki could tell a showdown was about to begin. Riku was impressed at how strong the Strafat's crew was. Then out of the corner of her eye she saw that part of the weird crew split into three. One group got behind Straw Hats. They were aiming for Samiko. Riku was about to jump but noticed a raven-haired lady pick up her arms and crossed them. Hands grew from the ambush group. A devil fruit. Chaki informed. Riku just nodded, already knowing. Then Riku suddenly remembered the second ambush group. Just as that was running through her mind, she saw them attacking. Samiko! She shouted as she jumped out of the bushes, punched 2 out of 5 attackers. Samiko ran to Riku, cheeks wet with tears, and more coming. As the 3 attackers were going for Riku, 3 gunshots went off. Baka, fore, I thought I told you to observe. You could have died. Chaki came out of the bushes with guns in her hands. Riku just smiled at her friend. But I won't. Chaki just sighed at her. Straw Hat, green hair, and blonde hair finished the last of the crew and the rest of Straw Hat went to them. Samiko. A boy's voice said. Samiko turned and saw her brother, who had bruises and cuts all over. Tamo ni. Samiko let go of Riku and ran to her brother. Riku looked to the pirate crew that started walking away, except for one. It was Straw Hat. He stood there watching them. Luffy, what are you doing? Let's go. Nami pulled on his shirt. Why? I thought we were going to eat. He turned to her and whined. We can't. We have to get off this island, she whispered harshly to him. Why? He asked, tilting his head. Luffy, don't you see? There are Marines on this island. Usopp stepped in trying to help Nami. Where? He tilted his head again. Right there, it says on her hat. Nami shouted, getting angry. But that doesn't mean she's a part of the Marines. Luffy frowned, and in response Nami and Usopp started dragging him away with the rest of the crew. Wait, Riku said, her voice piercing their conversation. You guys are pirates, right? They turned their heads. Luffy was about to speak, but Usopp clapped his hand on his mouth and Nami started to speak. What? Us, pirates? Ahahaha. No way, she waved her hand in dismissal. Don't lie to me, Riku said in a serious tone. And just to prove Nami's point before, a group of marine soldiers came behind Riku and Chaki. At the sight of this, Nami, Usopp and Chopper started backing away slowly. Zoro had his hands ready to grab his swords. Robin stood there with a slight smile on her face. Sanji was also getting ready to fight, but you could see him slightly distracted. And Luffy stood there with no expression, just staring. The Marines' responses were to line up and point their guns at the Straw Hats. Riku lifted her hand in the air, signaling to shoot. Or to stop. Riku lifted her hand in the air. Wait. She signaled to stop. Those guys on the ground, capture them and take them to the ship, she ordered. And they did as they were told. They picked up the limp bodies and carried them to the ship. Chaki just stood her ground with Riku. What are you doing? Riku looked to Chaki, and looked her straight in the eye. Chaki trembled at what she saw. Riku was glaring at her. It'd make everything faster if you helped pick up this mess, Riku said before turning away. Chaki just saluted, and left still shaking. Riku then started walking towards the harbor. See, she's not a bad person, Luffy said turning to Nami. Nami was quite confused herself, but shook it off and shouted towards the Commodore. Why? Riku stopped, and only turned her head slightly so they could see the side of her face. A friend of mine seems to know your captain. I'm only letting you off this one chance. If I catch you guys again, you're as good as dead. She then started walking again, but was stopped once more. Riku-san, Samiko shouted running towards said Commodore. Tomotsu right behind her. Thank you for helping Tomotsu and me, she said bowing with tears in her eyes. Although she didn't do much, Tomotsu said rolling his eyes. Samiko gave him a look, one that said to apologize. Well, it's true. Those pirates helped us more than her. Tomotsu pointed to Luffy, who was watching the conversation with interest. Samiko just sighed and turned back to Riku. I'm sorry for my brother's rudeness, Mikazuki-san, Samiko said bowing once more. Riku tilted her head a little before answering. It's fine. But why did you change my name to Mikazuki? I like Riku better, no-san needed. Mama told me that it's impolite to call people by their first name, and I forgot. She rubbed the back of her red head. Riku just patted her head. Luffy stared in disbelief, and in happiness, at what he just heard. Riku, Chaki said her name in curiosity. Don't question me. I have no answer, Riku quietly said leaning on the rail of their ship. Everything was silent as they sat watching the waves roll back and forth. Chaki wondered why Riku didn't arrest those people when she knew they were pirates. Riku was silently questioning herself. By the way, where are we headed next? Riku said finally breaking the silence. Most likely impelled down. Where else are we going to throw these pirates? Chaki said while pointing her thumb at the pirates being dragged onto the ship. They once again stood in silence. Commodore, Lieutenant. A Marines man came up to them and saluted. They turned their heads to him, showing that they are paying attention. We are ready to set sail. Riku nodded smiling, and then waved him off. She turned back to the island. Silence enveloped the two once more. I don't want to go, she said bursting into tears. Chaki just sighed, and then smiled, glad that Riku was back to her old self. The ship started to pull away from the docks. This trip was too short, Riku said while crouching in a corner, as depressing vibes were emitting off of her. Baka, this isn't a vacation, Chaki yelled at her Commodore. Riku. Riku's ears twitched. Riku, her head popped up. Riku. She ran over to the side of the ship where she could see the docks. Riku. Samiko shouted while waving her hands. Chaki came up right next to Riku. She's waving, you should wave back too, you know. Chaki turned her head towards the brown hair. Are you crying? Chaki shouted as she saw streams of water flow out from Riku's eyes. Thank you, come visit again, Samiko smiled. Tomotsu was right next to his sister all bandaged up. Thanks for the ice cream, oh Bakken, he shouted, and waved with one arm. Chaki, he's thanking you. You should wave back, Riku turned to scold her lieutenant. Why you? Chaki vein popped as she pinched Riku's cheeks and pulled them. But unlike a specific rubber boy, it hurt real badly for Riku. When Dia Island was nothing but a dot, Chaki stopped pulling on Riku's cheeks and the two went down to the kitchen to get something to drink. Riku sighed rubbing her cheek as she sat on a nearby barrel, while Chaki sat on a chair. Nay, nay. Chaki, I'm hungry and bored, Riku said. Chaki vein pulsed once more. Joking, joking, Riku said, holding her hands up in defense. Bang! Bang! Riku and Chaki looked up as they heard gunshots followed by screaming. Then they heard fast footsteps coming down the stairs. Chaki pulled out her gun and pointed it at the door, where a marine came in. We're under attack, he shouted. Riku and Chaki were up in no time, running up the stairs and onto the deck. There, they saw that their men were being thrown around. In the middle of the circle of marines, Riku saw a straw hat. Inwardly she cursed. She looked around and saw that their ship was off a few distance away, and wondered how he got on the ship. He took out the circle of marines in one swipe. Chaki started shooting bullets at him, but saw that when they hit, his body stretched, the blonde's blue eyes widened in surprise. While Chaki was in a state of shock, Luffy whipped his leg, hitting Chaki in the stomach, flinging her backwards. Riku looked back at Chaki, and then at Luffy. When she made eye contact with him, his face seemed to brighten up. Riku, he shouted. She charged, and tried to punch him a few times, but he dodged them. Are Riku? He questioned her while dodging. Why do you know my name? She yelled at him. We're friends, aren't we? He asked, as he tilted his head. His response a punch to the face, and it hurt a little. The cycle continued again. Riku threw punches at him and he dodged. Riku was wondering why he knew her name, and Luffy was wondering what he should do, seeing as she wasn't really going to stop and let him talk. Then Riku threw a horizontal punch. Luffy ducked under it, picked her up by the waist, and threw her over his shoulder. He then ran to the side of the railing while the marines shouted about how it was unfair to hold a hostage, and to give back our Commodore. Riku, taken by surprise at this action, struggled to get free. She punched his back several times, but the surprise made questions swirl in her head, making the punches weaker. Let go of me, she shouted in his ear, only to have him look over at her with a grin. He stretched his arm all the way over to his ship. What are you? But her words were cut off as they were flying through the air. She shut her eyes, then her head hit something hard, and she landed on top of it. She rubbed the top of her head in pain, sat up, and looked at what she landed on. It was a person. Inwardly she screamed and jumped off of the swordsman who was starting to come to. The crew watched as their captain battled the marines. They saw the lieutenant and commodore come out from below deck. The girl with her blonde hair tied in a pony shot several bullets at Luffy, only to have them repelled back. When Luffy knocked the lieutenant unconscious, they knew it was over. Nami yelled at them to get the ship ready to leave. Nami, Luffy shouted as he ran over to her. What? She asked. Do you see that marine's ship over there? He said, pointing to the ship that just left the dock. Yeah, why? She said, uncertain of what her captain wanted her to do. I want to go over there, he pointed like an excited child. Are you crazy? I don't want to get involved with marines now. Did you not hear that girl? If she catches us once more, we're dead, Nami shouted. Come on, Nami, it's not like a girl could defeat the monster trio, Usopp said, after overhearing the conversation with Chopper and Zoro. Nami mumbled a few words under her breath and went to the helm and turned it right. The ship now headed for the marine's ship. Alright Luffy, but you're the only one going on that ship, Nami shouted in a stern voice. That's fine. He smiled to her as he stretched his arms and went straight for the marine's ship. When Luffy came shooting back, what they didn't notice him. When the two came flying, the unknown person ran straight into Zoro, who didn't know what or who hit him. Aho! Zoro shouted as he stood up, getting ready to strangle Luffy. But then he saw that it wasn't Luffy who landed on him, but a girl. She had brown hair that reached past her shoulders to at least middle of her back. Her brown eyes stared at the crew, while they stared back, except for the captain on the floor chuckling at everyone's reactions. They took in her attire of a white t-shirt and black capris. She didn't look much like a marine to them. Luffy, what do you think you're doing? Nami took a hold of his collar and shook him. What am I doing? Oh well, he started to explain but was cut off by Nami shaking him again. You just stole their Commodore, Nami shouted in his face, oblivious to the marine girl inching her way to the side of the boat. Now's my chance, Riku shouted to herself in her head. She leapt over the edge of the ship, and as she saw freedom in the waters below her, two arms grabbed in midair and pulled her back onto the ship once more. But the pullback was fast, and she hit her head on the mast of the ship, because whoever pulled her back in didn't know their own strength. After the collision, everything went black. That was a close one, Riku. Luffy said. He walked over to the girl lying nearing the mast he accidentally flung her against. He didn't notice her body went limp, and her eyes were closed. He tilted his head sideways when he saw that she didn't respond. Riku? Riku? He started poking her in the arm. Usopp, go get the rope. Nami said, watching Luffy, feeling slightly bad for the Commodore. Damn, Chaki, my head hurts like… Riku stopped mid-sentence, noticing something wasn't right. Chaki? She shouted slightly. Chaki. She finally noticed that this wasn't her bed, or the infirmary room on the ship. In fact, it wasn't an infirmary room at all, it was a storage room. She was lying down on some sheets set down, with a pillow and blanket. She also noticed that she was tied up. Then everything came back to her, from when she waved goodbye to the island to getting kidnapped by pirates. The words came out in a hiss. She tried to wriggle free of the rope that bound her arms to her body, but whoever tied it tight. She could feel the rope burning into her skin each time she rotated. She stopped for a while before a light bulb appeared over her head. Riku grabbed the knife she stuck in her pocket before she left the Marine's ship with Chaki, and cut through the rope. She then remembered something else. She ran out onto deck, and when she made it she looked around. It was daylight out, but the problem was, there were no land, no ship, no Dia Island, and no Marine's ship. All she saw was the sea, the large, blue, salty waves, rolling back and forth towards the ship. Her heart sunk, she fell to her knees thinking what lies ahead of her, in the future. Would they kill her? She wasn't afraid of death, she lied. She was terrified. Would they cast her off into the sea? She could handle herself, beat up a few sea kings, and eat them. She had many what-ifs in her head, but she managed to organize her thoughts. He knew my name, so that means he knows me in some way. Maybe it's a friendly relationship we have. So maybe if I asked kindly, he would drop me off at the next port. No, we're not going to become friendly with some random kid who kidnaps us. He's also a pirate, and if he kidnaps people, he must be evil. But he did save Sumiko and Tomotsu, and Kobe seems to know him, so he's got to be nice, right? He rammed you into a mast. That's right, I haven't forgotten about that yet. Where did you come from anyway? She sighed. This was stupid. She was arguing with herself. She felt like a total idiot. I'm an idiot, she shouted to nobody in particular, while smashing her head into the mast. Why, you shouldn't do that, a small voice said. Riku stopped and looked around. A little trickle of blood came down her forehead. She saw a small reindeer trying to hide behind the middle tangerine tree on the ship. Wait, a tangerine tree? When Riku really thought about it, she hasn't paid attention to the ship at all. The ship looked like Caravel, with a sheep figurehead. But with a pirate mark. She shook her head. Now's not the time. Was it that reindeer who just spoke? She took another look at the little reindeer with a big reddish, pinkish hat, with maroon shorts, which was hiding the wrong way. Kawaii, she whispered with a faint tint of red on her cheeks. No, that's not the point. She shook her head, and then stared at him a little longer, as he stared back. A reindeer can't talk. What am I saying? Hee 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 hee. She rubbed the back of her head, and laughed in an unusual way. Then I wonder what it was that I heard. I must be hearing things now. Hee hee hee. She then slammed her head against the mast once more, but with more power than usual, that it cracked a little. Hey, I said you shouldn't do that. The reindeer came out of his hiding spot. He was running to stop Riku from slamming her head again, but she wasn't planning to. She was too shocked that a reindeer had just spoken to her. Wait, this could be a trap. Hurry and dodge. Rewind. A few minutes earlier, when Riku wasn't awake. So, Luffy, mind telling us why you decided to kidnap a Commodore? Nami asked quietly while sipping coffee that Sanji had made for her that morning. Seeing as you haven't said about a word about her since yesterday. Her name is Riku, she's my friend, strong, and likes meat, he announced while grinning. Nami slapped her hands down on the table. That's not what I meant. What are we going to do with her? We can't possibly keep her on the ship. Nami's right, Luffy, she's dangerous. We should probably throw her out, maybe into the sea. Usopp said while eating his breakfast. I will not allow that, Sanji said, butting into the conversation. Soon everyone was arguing about what to do with the unconscious Marine, but the only people a part of this conversation were Usopp, Nami, Sanji, and Luffy. Zoro was asleep, Robin was reading, and Chopper was just watching. "I know her, and she's a good person," Luffy shouted at them, trying to defend Riku. "And how do you know her, Luffy?" Nami asked. "She's my friend. She didn't look much like a friend when she tried to beat you up on her ship." They started yelling in each other's faces, so loud that Zoro woke up and tried to resolve the issue. But then he got in a fight with Sanji, making the commotion worse. "I'm an idiot." Chopper's ears twitched, he heard something. "Everyone," he shouted to the group, but no one was listening, so he decided to go check it out himself. When he got outside, he saw the girl banging her head on the mast. Present time, Riku jumped out of the way, and the reindeer fell face flat onto the wood deck. He looked up at Riku with tears in his eyes. Riku felt a load of guilt fall onto her. "What was that for?" Chopper shouted. "I was only trying to help." "Chopper," his friends shouted as they came outside, after hearing Chopper's shout. "Hey, what did you do?" Nami said, stomping over to Riku, who was on the ground a feet away from where Chopper fell. "I didn't do anything, But Riku was cut off short when she felt the sharp tip of swords against her neck. She looked up to see none other than Roronoa Zoro. The orange-haired navigator was stomping away towards Chopper to help treat him. She watched as the little reindeer got up. She fidgeted as she waited for one of the swords to go through her neck, or for someone to tell her of her fate. "I am fine," Chopper said to his friends, hiccuping in the sentences, but acting strong. "She needs medical attention though," he said, pointing one of his hooves at Riku. "Riku, what happened?" Luffy said, staring at her. She could tell he was staring at her wound on the forehead. She didn't answer. "I'll do it," Nami stated, getting up from her kneeling position. "No, I'll do it. I'm the doctor of this ship," Chopper said as he started walking towards her. What he didn't notice though was that she went stiff after the word doctor. Zoro saw this, and pulled his swords away. As Chopper came walking closer, she crawled backwards. When Chopper saw that she was trying to get away from him, he tilted his head a little. What's wrong?" he asked, afraid it was some sort of sickness he's never seen before. Stay back." Riku's voice left her, her eyes were wide because of fear, and her body was shaking. Everyone was curious as to what was happening, especially Luffy. After Chopper heard the "stay back," he thought it was because she was scared of him, because he could talk, and was a monster. He too was scared now. He took a step back from fright, and turned around and ran towards Zoro, and hid behind him. "Nami, you can take care of her," Chopper shouted to the navigator, who was just as confused as everyone else. But she just nodded in understanding of how Chopper was scared. She took out a roll of bandages from Chopper's blue backpack, and started her way towards Riku. Just as Nami was about a foot away, Riku stumbled to a standing position and took a right, running awkwardly away. Nami and everyone chased her, except for Zoro and Chopper, who were just watching from a distance. Robin was also standing with them. There wasn't a lot of places to go on the ship, and soon enough, Riku ran into a dead end, the head of the ship where Mary was. Riku turned to face the people. "Don't come any closer. If you take one more step, I'll jump." "Fine, then jump. We weren't planning on keeping you around anyway," Nami shouted. Riku was light that they might have her jump ship or something, but this girl was just cold. Wait. Chopper's voice peeped up from behind Zoro. He didn't want to see someone jump ship, especially if Luffy was telling the truth about her being a friend. He came out from behind Zoro, and started towards Riku. "We have to take care of that wound on your forehead," he said. "I'm fine. I don't need medical assistance. I don't need a doctor." Riku choked on the last word, giving away her fear. Letting everyone understand what was wrong, she slowly backed away. Chopper got closer with each step, and soon enough, he was standing right in front of her. Riku's back hit the rail. She looked at the reindeer and was shocked. He was smiling. Not an evil, excited smile, but a kind smile. "It's okay. You can trust me. Not as a doctor, but as a friend," he said, still with a smile on his face. "It's okay, Riku. You can trust me, not as a doctor, but as a friend." A memory came back to her. It was back a few years ago. He had said the same words as her. Riku slowly nodded her head, and bent down to Chopper's height so he could apply bandages to her head. Nami came up and handed him the roll, and gave Riku a look. Riku couldn't catch it, but it said, "Don't try anything or we'll throw you overboard." Everything was quiet as Chopper wrapped Riku's head. All the Strafots just watched, lost in their own thoughts about Riku. Just as Chopper was going to tighten the bandage, Riku pushed him to the ground. Everyone got into a fighting stance around Riku, except Luffy, who was wondering what just happened. Her bandages fell to the ground. "Look out!" she shouted as a harpoon went straight into the spot Chopper was just in. No one noticed the oncoming ship from behind. Riku jumped up from her spot on the ground next to Chopper and ran to the rear of the ship, with the other Straw Hats. As she reached the rear, she jumped off the ship and onto the other pirate ship. No one else moved. The pirates started attacking her when she landed on the ship. She didn't bother to look at their flag. As she dodged the many swords swung at her, she uppercut the one in front of her, then elbowed the one behind her in the gut. A mistake she made was how many were on the ship, and was surrounded in a circle. An attacker from above caught her off guard. She shielded herself from the strike. But it never came. She looked up and saw an arm stretched across from the front side of the ship. She looked over and saw Straw Hat with a serious face on. "No one hurts my friends," he shouted, as his swordsman and cook came out to fight with him. "I won't forgive anyone who tries to hurt a lady," the blonde cook said. Riku couldn't help but chuckle at that statement. After the fight with the other pirates, I was escorted back to the Straw Hats ship by their chef. Chopper reapplied my bandages and asked the navigator a question I couldn't hear. When she nodded, he told me to go to the women's room to rest. I did as he said, because I felt he was the only one I could trust on this ship. The captain said he wanted to come with, to see if I was okay. But the reindeer said I shouldn't be bothered. "I'll show you to the room," the navigator offered. She took me to the storage room. There was a hatch I never saw, and when she opened it, there were stairs leading to the women's room. "Thanks," I murmured. She stopped in her tracks backwards and nodded her head, with a little smile. I walked over to the couch and passed out. I woke up to the smell of food. I sat up in the bed and held my head in my hands. It was painful, but the pain stopped, and I saw that the doctor had brought food in the room on a tray. My stomach growled loudly, causing a faint tint of red to show up on my cheeks. "Eat this. It will make you feel better," he said while placing the tray down in front of me. I nodded slowly, not debating whether he poisoned it or not, and scarfed the food down in several bites. I placed the fork down on the plate with a clanking sound. "Thank you," I said to him. He nodded his head. "I'm Tony Chopper, and I'm the doctor of this ship," Chopper announced proudly. I nodded once more. "I'm Mikazuki Riku." "Mikazuki, how do you know Luffy?" Chopper asked out of the blue while he was taking the tray away and to the counter nearby. "I don't know him. How can you talk?" I asked as I was given a cup of water and a pill. "This will make the pain in your head go away." I ate a devil fruit, the Hito no Mi. I popped the pill into my mouth, and then quickly drank the water, having the pill easily swallowed. "Thank you for saving me yesterday," he said as he took the glass away. "I only did what was right. I have another question. What does your crew plan to do with me?" I looked at him in the eyes with a serious face. "That's for Luffy to decide. But I'm sure he'll let you stay," he said with a smile as he walked out the door with the tray in his hand. I lay back down onto the couch. Will he really let me stay? Then again, I did save his crew member. Any normal person would have done the same thing, right? I couldn't think right now. I needed to get some air. But I was kidnapped, so that makes me a prisoner. It doesn't feel like I'm in a threatening situation right now. I got up from the couch and made my way to the stairs that led up to the storage room. I took a long look at the hatch above me, wondering if they locked it. I gave a little push, and what do you know, it's unlocked. I stepped out into the storage room and opened the door leading to the deck, the sun blinding me with its rays. I decided to take a look around. No one said I couldn't anyways. First I walked up to the tangerine trees, which was what I first noticed about the ship. When I got there, I saw their navigator, and she was tending to the tangerines. I was about to leave, but she spotted me and called out. "Riku?" she asked, making sure it was me. "Why yeah." I answered, unsure of how to answer to someone who just a day ago didn't care if I died or not. She got up from her work and walked over to me. "I'm Nami, the navigator of this crew." She held her hand out to me and smiled. I carefully took a hold of it. "Mikazuki Riku," I said, not making eye contact. She just sighed. Look, I'm sorry that I was a little mean when we first met. But Luffy and everyone agreed to keep you on board, after you helped Chopper. She said, looking at me as if asking for forgiveness. Wait. Keep me on board? That means I won't get thrown into the sea? I rejoiced. Nami could tell by my expression that I was happy about something. It's okay. I said, smiling back at her. Great, now, for the duration of your stay, I expect 1,000 belly for each day. She clapped her hands together. My face was expressionless. I didn't know how to react. Nami was a money-loving pirate navigator. This time, it was my turn to sigh. Sorry, but I don't have any money on me right now, I said in a sad voice. Nami's face went blank. Remember, Straw Hat kidnapped me. Oh, that's okay. You can pay it off when you get money. Her cheery mood came back. Now come help me tend to these mycons. Soon enough, I was pulled into tending to the mycons for at least around 10 minutes. Would have been an hour if I didn't sneak away. Either way, I wasn't good at it. I walked to the front of the ship to take a closer look at the figurehead. Was it really a sheep? Or was I just imagining things? As I got there, I saw a lady with raven hair reading a book, while leaning on the railing. You're Riku, right? She asked. Yeah, and you're Nico Robin. Am I wrong? I walked over to her, and leaned on the railing opposite of hers. I thought I saw the grip on her book tighten a little, but it could have been my imagination. I stared out to sea as I carefully picked out my next words. The world nobles are hiding something, and it's in the text of the poneglyphs. The Rio poneglyph, the Void Century. Even though I never knew him, Jaguar D. Sol did the right thing, protecting you. I said the last part quietly. Then I left, walking away towards the kitchen. My stomach was as loud as a siren by the time I got to the kitchen door. Even though Chopper brought me breakfast, it wasn't enough to satisfy my needs of no food for 3 days. I tried to slowly and quietly open the door, so I could steal some food. But the door started squeaking so loud I decided to give up on being a sneaky and just to ask for food. As I stuck my head in the door, I could hear the clanking of dishes and the sound of running water. I opened the door the rest of the way, and that's when the blonde chef saw me. Ah, Riku-chan, he shouted with hearts in his eyes. Hey, I dared not to move, but when he started walking over to me, arms wide, my instincts kicked in, and I kicked him in the face. Sorry. I just came in to get some food, I shouted. Food? Okay. He shouted and ran over to the kitchen area and started cooking, fast. I could barely see what he was throwing into the dish. I decided to go sit down and wait. When he was done, he walked over to me, with a plate and glass in hand. He set it down gently and carefully. I almost forgot I was on a pirate ship. The food looked delicious. It was a large barbecued lobster, which was literally shining off of my plate. I turned to the cook. Thank you. I paused. I never caught his name. I'm Sanji, the cook. He too stated proudly, like Chopper. I was about to start digging into my plate before I heard a call. Sanji. Food. I smell food. Straw Hat shouted as he came bursting in through the door. Luffy. This isn't for you, Sanji yelled at his captain. But, Riku gets food, he whined. I just blew on the lobster and started eating it as Sanji kicked Luffy out of the room. Thank you, it was delicious, I said as I got up from my seat and walked out the door. After I walked out the door, I expected to see their captain, seeing as he left not too long ago. But he was nowhere in sight. A hatch near the mast caught my eye. I walked over to it, and decided to see what was down there. I climbed down the ladder, and when I got there I could hear laughing. I turned to see Luffy, Chopper, and Usopp surrounding something, but I couldn't see what. What are you guys doing? I asked, making them jump. I guess they didn't notice me there. Oh, Riku, we were just about to wake up Zoro. Wanna help? Luffy asked with a smile on his face. For some reason, I didn't mind when Nami and Robin called me just by my first name, while Sanji added a suffix. But when Straw Hat says it, it just gets on my nerves. The way he says it, it's like I was his long-lost friend, or something. Riku. This is Usopp. Straw Hat pointed to a guy with black curly hair, and a long nose. That's Captain Usopp to you. He pointed to himself with Ton. Luffy said to him. Anyway, we were just about to tickle Zoro's nose with this feather. After that he would slap himself with cream. You can watch. Usopp said quietly. That's kid stuff. I stated plainly. They were shocked about my remark. I mean, it's a good idea really, but isn't it going to be a pain to clean up a mess if things don't go as planned? I whispered. You have to use a plan that you know will work for sure. The three gathered around me. What do you recommend? Chopper asked. Watch this, I said as I walked over to where Zoro was sleeping. It was on a hammock on top. I noticed that there were sheets under him. I smiled. Good. This would make the plan easier. I took a hold of the sheets. Riku, don't forget to run upstairs, because Zoro's going to get mad, Luffy whispered. The other two around him were laughing. I just nodded my head. 1, 2, 3. I pulled the sheets as hard as I could and the swordsman came tumbling out of the hammock and onto the hardwood floor. The three boys and I ran and bursted out laughing as we climbed the ladder to get away from the swordsman. When we were on deck, we fell to the ground, laughing so hard, we didn't care that an evil aura was around the first mate. Which one of you did it? He growled. We all stopped laughing and the three pointed to me. Wah! But before I could finish my sentence a vertical slash was towards me. I took out my dagger and managed a horizontal block, just a few centimeters away from my face. Whoa, I heard the three whispers and then start clapping. My sweat dropped. Zoro jumped back and then I heard a door behind me open up. Oi, Marimo, what do you think you're doing hurting our guest? Sanji's voice came from behind. What? So now I'm a guest? Well, it is better than being a prisoner. I was called out of my thoughts by the sound of a sword, and in front of me were Zoro and Sanji fighting. Wasn't I supposed to be fighting Zoro? Don't worry, they do that all the time. I turned to see Nami coming up from behind me. I just nodded in understanding. Hey, what time is dinner? I asked her. It should be soon, she said. Sanji, is dinner done yet? She shouted to him. Almost, Nami swan. He stopped in the middle of the fight, and then ran to the kitchen to finish up dinner. It's done, he came back out, as fast as he went in. Riku, cared to join us for dinner? Nami asked, and I just nodded my head with a smile. All I need is to find a way back to HQ while on this ship. So far, I have to admit, this crew is pretty crazy, but it can't be that bad, right? As I was eating dinner with the Straw Hats, I got to know more about them, kind of. I have to admit, eating food with them was way more fun than eating in the Marines HQ. Luffy managed to steal everyone's food except for Nami's and mine. Nami kept stabbing her fork into his hand each time he would reach for her plate, same with mine, but I used a spoon. So Riku, how do you know Luffy? Chopper asked as he ate some bread. I nibbled on my piece of meat as I plainly answered, I don't. What do you mean you don't know him? He seems to know you. Usopp looked up at me from his plate. That's funny, Riku. I've known you since we were little. Luffy laughed with food overflowing his mouth. Remember Ace and I? RP, but he was cut off. I don't know anyone named Luffy. I was starting to shout and unknowingly I stood up from my seat. Everything became silent for a while. Please excuse me, I quietly said as I quickly walked out the door. After dinner I retired to the women's quarter. There were only 2 hammocks in the quarters, so I had to sleep on the couch. I laid down and placed my trembling hand on my forehead. Why was I shaking? What was I so afraid of? Maybe I'm just cold. Yeah, that's it. I'm just cold. Quickly, I took the blanket that Nami had laid out for me on the couch and wrapped it around my body. The trembling ceased. I shut my eyes as I heard the sound of light footsteps coming towards the room. I heard the voice of Nami and Robin coming down. Geez, that Luffy, he shouldn't get into other people's business. He probably mistook her for another person, Nami angrily whispered. Probably, but Sencho-san seemed to know her name before she told us, Robin quietly pointed out. Yeah, but he probably heard one of the Marines say it on Dia Island. Nami whispered as they both crawled into their hammocks. Robin silently agreed, and the two shut their eyes and fell into a deep sleep. When I shut my eyes, I didn't know that I fell asleep. The darkness slowly faded, and I could see vegetation. I was on a cliff, and the ocean was down below me. I've had this dream at least once every year, sometimes even more. This was a dream that I remembered the most. Next to me were 2 others, their faces shadowed. I was never able to see their faces. My body moved on its own. I couldn't quite control it. I couldn't hear anything, but I could tell that I was talking. I could feel my jaw move. I could never quite figure out what I was saying, and just like those before, I spit in my hand, and placed my hand in the middle with the others. A pact. Everything vanished, and it became dark once more. Before getting up, I waited until I heard the two breathing synchronize into a calming rhythm before I sat up on the couch. The two had just finished talking. I took one look at them and saw that they both seemed to be dreaming, both with a delighted look on their faces. A small smile graced upon my lips. I couldn't help but slightly envy them slightly, living such a free life with no worries. I let the blanket fall onto the couch as I headed out to deck. The cool wind danced on my skin, making goosebumps appear. I was still in my white t-shirt and black capris. When I thought about it, I've been in the same attire ever since I got on this ship. I breathed in the refreshing air as I looked to the mast, the tall one where lookouts are usually placed. I didn't see anyone on duty, so I decided to climb it. As I made my way to the top, I thought I heard noises coming from the crow's nest. An enemy, I thought to myself. What do I do? Should I run for help? Scream? Wait, I'm part of the Marines, why am I worried? As jumped into the nest, and there I saw Straw Hat sleeping soundlessly on the job. Slacker was the first word that came into my mind. I was about to retreat back down the mast until I felt something grab a hold of the corner of my t-shirt. I turned to see that Straw Hat was unconsciously holding onto it. I pulled, but he only tightened his grip. I turned to face him and was about to yank the shirt out of his grip before I heard him mumble a few words. "Ace, stop her, leaving," were the only words I caught as I slowly bent down and sat on my knees. "Riku, promise." I stared blankly at the boy who could hold the answer to my prayers, to my past. I placed my cold hands on the hand that held onto my shirt. Once again, they were trembling. Did I really want to know? I've lived 7 years without it, but the thought has always been with me. Straw Hat started to stir under my frigid hands. Quickly I pulled away, and jumped off the nest as he opened his eyes. I landed silently on the deck and hastily pressed my back against the mast on the opposite side of him. I could hear movement above, and pressed myself closer to the mast as I listened to the paced breathing. Taking a fast glance upwards, I could see that he was moving sluggishly my way. I tiptoed the other direction, and as he got to the other side I took another look. He stopped and placed his hands on the edge. It seems he's going to stay there for a while. I sighed as I slid down into a sitting position. I cradled my head in my hands as my head felt like it was going to explode. What if it's not how I thought of it? Or dreamed? Will I be happy? Slowly my eyes started to droop, and everything became black. When the first light from the sun reached the merry-go, Riku awoke. She was still sitting under the crow's nest lazily. She started to stand up, and was about to walk back to the quarters before her eye caught on a blue piece of fabric that fell off from her. It was a blanket. She stared at it for some time before she bent down and picked it up. It was the one from the couch in the women's quarters. She walked back to the room, with the blanket in hand. Another dream. A different dream. Instead of being on the cliff, it looked as if she was in a kitchen. This was new. She looked ahead of her, and saw someone was cooking on the stove. Once again, their face was shadowed. But unlike the others, this person was different. She could tell by the clothes and movement. This person seemed to have more of a caring type personality. Her stomach growled loudly as she could smell food coming from the stove, the scent of basil, mint, lemon, and cherry blossom. Wait, cherry blossoms? Riku moved one of her foots forward, and it seemed to work. She walked toward the mystery person, and the scent of blossoms was emitting off of them. It wasn't strong like a women's perfume, but a faint, delicate scent. The person turned around and smiled at her, and for some reason, Riku couldn't help but smile back. A bright light broke through the kitchen windows. Riku awoke after passing out on the couch the morning she got back to the women's quarters. Nami and Robin were nowhere to be seen. She sat up and looked around, wondering how long she had slept for. She went outside to see that it was already midday, and that the ship was already docked. She looked around the ship for the crew to ask what happened, but the only person she found was Zoro leaning against the mast dozing off. As she approached him, his eyes snapped open and watched her every move as she walked closer. She sat down across from him cross-legged. "What happened?" she simply asked. He shut his eyes, seeing as she posed no threat, but was still cautious of her. "We met an old lady named Kokura and her granddaughter named Chimney who gave us a map of this city we're in now, called Water 7. He said, Nami, Luffy, and Usopp left to go get money, Chopper and Robin went to go get books, and Arrow Cook went to go get supplies. Riku just nodded and ran inside to get change. She was in the same clothes for more than 2 to 3 days, and Nami offered her some clothes, but at a certain price. It was too much, so she had to refuse. Nami also offered to let Riku borrow some money, as long she pays it back, double the price. Once again Riku refused, but Nami insisted she buys clothes for herself by stuffing the money into Riku's pockets. "If they come back looking for me, tell them I just went to go look around," she quickly said as she jumped off the ship. "Wait, why would I tell them I went looking around? I'm supposed to be getting off this ship, right? Not back on." She stared at the pure blue water pouring out of the top of Water 7 in amazement, mesmerized by the beauty. She started off and made it to the market area. She went to each stall and looked at the items that were on sale. She stopped at the clothing store and bought a jacket, shirts, jeans, and all that. She paid about 70,000 belly for all of it, meaning she had to pay Nami 140,000 back. She sighed as she walked into the crowd. There were people all around her, and soon a tugging sensation filled her senses in a specific direction. Riku's body started to move on its own accord. As the tugging subsided, she was left standing in front of the market once again. She breathed in from her nose, and it twitched. That scent. She turned her head left and right, but no one was there. Walking into the market, Riku looked at the stands and she caught a flash of figure moving in the distance, and the familiar scent of blossoms came back. Pushing through the large crowd, she ended up at the fruit stall, and once again, she lost them. Her breathing was rapid from the work but slightly slowed down as she was pushed into her own thoughts. Her heart was beating fast and a feeling of nausea floated up to the surface. Apples rolled across the concrete ground. One rolled towards Riku, knocking her out of her thoughts. Her breathing became normal again as she picked up the apple, looking towards the person panicking about them. She noticed that they were soaked in water from the nearby canal because of a splashing Yagara bull. Walking up to them, she offered them the apple, which they took and nodded their head. Riku took in their appearance. Long light brown hazel hair, a set of gleaming brown eyes, and a slender body to top it off. Any man would have been captivated at the sight of this person. They were wearing a now wet brown cardigan, white t-shirt inside, and jeans. Riku was mesmerized by this person, and didn't notice them talking to her. She was snapped out of her thoughts as hands waved past her face. "Thank you very much," the girl said when she saw that Riku was okay. "Why yeah," Riku replied quickly. There was something about this person that made her stomach churn, giving a nostalgic feeling. "Achoo," she sneezed. The cold from the wet clothes was getting to her. "Excuse me, it looks like I'm going to catch a cold." She mumbled the last part. The girl started getting up to walk home, but slipped on a puddle, falling into excess water still on the concrete. Soon, the girl felt the warmth of a jacket draped on their shoulders. It was a black jacket that looked like it would fit them. She looked to thank Riku, but she was already walking away. "Weird girl," Riku said to herself. Riku started wondering what she should do now. Her thoughts on the person with the cherry blossom scent had left her mind. She thought that if she was going to run away, she would need some supplies first. She decided to stop at a medical shop first. As Riku was browsing the shop for bandages, a familiar black low ponytail caught her attention across the room. Walking over, she noticed her instincts were correct. "Gaia-san?" she asked. Upon hearing her name, Yumi Gaia turned her head to see Riku, who had a surprised look on her face. "Oh, Riku, it's good to see you again. I heard you promoted to Commodore," Gaia said, walking up to the counter to pay for her things. "Yeah, what are you doing here? I thought you had something important to do?" Riku asked. "Yeah, but that was 5 days ago," she said, handing the money to the cashier. "It's really been that long?" Riku asked in surprise. "Yeah, haven't been keeping track of the days, or what?" She chuckled slightly at Riku. "Why yeah, sorta," Riku said, mumbling things under her breath about damn pirates and kidnapped. Gaia just nodded her head, as if understanding, but really she didn't. After they left the shop, Riku slowed to ask the question that has been in her mind when she saw Yumi. "Gaia-san?" Gaia nodded her head in response. "Is there any type of medication that brings back memories?" Riku asked. Gaia stopped in her tracks, causing Riku to crash into her. "No, I'm sorry." Looked to the ground as if she was in shame, but there was really no expression on her face. "It's not your fault," Riku quickly blurted out. Gaia just gave a small smile to the girl who tried to cheer her up. She ruffled Riku's dark brown hair. How long are you going to be in water 7 for? Gaia looked up to the sky and thought. I don't know, maybe I'll leave back with you. Is that okay? Her green eyes looked towards Riku. Huh? No way. You can't. Gaia looked at Riku curiously. I mean, well, you see I have a very important mission to do here, and it may take a few days, and I'm sure you have people to take care of on different islands. Oh, I see. Well, this is my stop. Hope to see you soon, Gaia said as she stopped in front of an inn. Riku didn't even notice which direction they were walking. Okay, bye, Riku said, running off to who knows where. First person pawed that girl, she reminds me of Nei-san. I thought as my hands picked up the dirtied plates, and thought back to the time she helped me. Achoo, Oni-san, you're going to catch a cold. Why do you call me that? I had asked her why she called me Oni-san. Now's not the time. The longer you stay in the rain, your cold is getting worse. The younger girl placed her jacket onto me. What about you? I shouted over the sound of the rain pellets. Don't worry about me, if I get sick you can take care of me. I can't say the same the other way around, thought Cheek, and smiled. Oi, newbie. There's a customer at the door, another worker shouted, pulling me out of my flashback, and back into the busy cafe. I got it. I hurriedly put the dishes in the sink, grabbed a tray and rushed to go sit the customer. Welcome to Mizu Mizu Cafe. Smiling happily I was about to guide them to a table before I noticed something. Do I know you? I asked. Hey, can I get some food here? She asked me. She didn't seem to notice who I was, because her eyes were wandering around the place. When her eyes finally landed on me they widened slightly. Why yes, you can get some food around here. I smiled thoughtfully at her, not noticing the surprised look on her face. She studied my face for some time. As my smile faltered during the silence, she sighed unexpectedly. Can I ask a favor from you? She questioned me. Sure, what can I do for you? Well, this may seem kind of weird. But, Gomu Gomu no, I heard a voice in the distance and looked behind her, but no one was there. I turned back to her to see a tick mark on her head. See, can I borrow that? She forced a smile and pointed at my tray. I nodded slowly and handed it to her. Rocket. She placed her legs a little farther than shoulder widths apart and bent the knees. She spun the tray in one of her hands as if it were a baseball bat. Riku. A boy shouted who was flying through the air. She lifted the tray with both hands. Super Waatras tray, attack. She shouted as she took the tray and hit the boy square in the face, sending him flying up and far. The customers watched and were slightly frightened by her strength. Quickly they took their eyes off of her, but stole glances once in a while. She let out a breath of air and handed the tray back to me. Thanks, she said. Is he going to be okay? I asked, a little panicked. Don't worry, he's made of rubber. Rubber? She simply nodded her head in response. Now back to what I was saying, I kind of need a place to stay, and I don't have any money on me. She trailed off looking kind of flustered. I realized which direction this was going. Sure, I told her. Really? She didn't seem to really believe me. Absolutely. I stated. Thanks so much, she literally shouted, causing the customers to turn once more. By the way, I'm Riku. Haruhi Yuki. Yuki being my surname. I placed my hand out in front of me. She looked at it for a while, and then took it. A flicker warm energy filled my body as we shook. She seemed to notice it also, because her eyes widened and she pulled her hand away. Riku's paw, what was that? I thought to myself, as I walked down the concrete to who knows where. I looked at my hand I had shaken Yuki with. The feeling has subsided a while ago. I then looked at the piece of paper she gave me. It had her address on it, which is where I would be sleeping for a while now until I could get a hold of headquarters. I stopped in front of Dock 1 and sighed. I barely knew this girl and I just asked for a place to stay from her. I couldn't stay with Gaia-san, that's for sure. If I did, I would probably spill about me being on a pirate ship, and that wasn't a good idea. She might think I'm switching sides and I'm becoming a pirate, maybe. I was never good at the logical, thinking, strategy stuff. I had no money to stay at an inn either. I haven't even paid Nami back. I'm actually kind of scared of what she'll do to me if I don't pay back soon. I sat there watching the workers build ships. Soon it was starting to get dark out and I headed off to go locate my new home. Is she a traveler? I thought to myself, because the direction on this sheet led me to an inn for travelers, pirates, merchants and others. There's no way she could be a pirate, that's for sure. I laughed a little and tried to picture Yuki trying to be mean and scare some kids. I think instead they would all hug her and shout her name. "Riku, up here." I heard a shout come from the stairs that lead upward, and there at the top I saw Yuki. I gave a little wave and wandered up the stairs following Yuki to her room. After getting changed and all that into my new pajamas, I flopped down on the second bed next to hers. She did the same, but turned her body so it was facing me. Her long brown hazel hair cascading down over her shoulders and some settling on her back, compared to my dark brown hair, was sprawled across my pillow as I stared up at the ceiling. She was wearing a large white t-shirt with light gray sweatpants, while I wore a black t-shirt and black gym shorts, opposites. Yuki stared at me intently from across the beds. I was about to ask why she was doing that, but it seemed that my body shut down before I ordered it to. Riku woke up from her concentrated sleep, and looked around. Yuki was nowhere to be seen. Yuki has already gone down to work, leaving food next to Riku's bedside table. She quickly took the bacon and eggs, ate them slowly. The taste was magnificent. The bacon was full of taste, as was the eggs. After she finished the plate, she set it aside and changed into a black and purple plaid hoodie, with dark skinny jeans, and sneakers. She decided to go out today and look around some more. She also wanted to visit Gaia. Riku got lost several times, before she decided to ask people for directions. Luckily her sense of direction wasn't as bad as a certain swordsman. One man pointed out the way and described the things she would pass to get to the medical shop. After getting there she saw once again Yumi Gaia. "Gaia-san!" Riku shouted, waving her hands. "Riku? What are you doing back here again?" Gaia chuckled at seeing her friend again at the same place. "Ahaha. Funny we would meet in the same place, right?" She lied. She knew Gaia would be here to do extra shopping. "While we're here anyway, I have some questions I think you could help me answer?" Gaia tilted her head slightly. "Sure, ask away." They started walking in a random direction. "Well, first, what could it mean if you're having repeated dreams?" "I think you already asked me that question a few years ago." Gaia stated plainly, her low pony swishing in sync with the walk. "Oh, really? Ahahaha. Then second of all, what?" She was cut off by the loud sound of screaming. Riku started running first, with Gaia close behind her. They were headed in the direction of Dock 1 where Luffy and Frankie were battling. When they finally made it there they saw all the chaos. They were standing in the crowd near Nami. Riku listened to her shout and watched as Luffy and the stranger battled it out. Gaia stood there speechless, except Riku saw her shift the bag in her hands. It contained the entire medical supplies she bought not too long ago. She knew she was going to have a patient soon. Riku could hear everyone around her screaming about them destroying the dock. She couldn't take it anymore. She ran into the battle against Gaia's protest when Luffy and Frankie were at the opposite sides of each other. Nami could only watch the girl who just ran in from behind her as Frankie's arm detached and Luffy's stretched across to hit each other. Instead, Riku jumped right into the middle before any of them could reach one another. Both attacks hitting her powerfully on each side. Even though the attack wasn't a direct hit in the stomach, blood spluttered out of her mouth as her knees hit the ground. Luffy was in shock at who he had just hit. But the shock was over because some weird men came and punched both Luffy and Frankie in the face. Riku held both of her hands on her now damaged sides. She thinks she may have broken a bone. As she tried to stand up to get out of the way, she almost fell back down, but Gaia caught her and supported her until they made it to the opposite side of the crowd. They sat next to a large machine-like piece. Riku rested her back on it while Gaia was next to her right side. Gaia immediately opened her bag and found bandages, ointment, and other medical supplies. She didn't have all the supplies she needed, but this would have to work for now. "Are you alright?" Gaia asked as she applied the ointment to Riku's side. "Yeah, after getting hit with 2 powerful attacks, I feel like I can fly." Riku emphasized the fly part and lifted both hands in the air. Gaia was about to put on bandages before Riku pushed her head away from her, and Gaia fell. Stray bullets plunged into the spot of where Gaia's head would have been. Gaia wasn't too surprised about that. She just smiled. She knew Riku was a strong girl who has trained herself for these kinds of situations to protect people. After Gaia was done applying the bandages, they sat there and watched as Luffy and Frankie got beat. Soon enough Riku's eyes closed and Gaia felt her body slump next to her. It didn't seem like she lost a lot of blood, but those punches did look like they hurt. Gaia lifted Riku onto her back and decided to take her back to the inn. As Gaia was walking away, she could hear the shouts of the angry citizens yelling at the Straw Hat Boy. It seems that he managed to get away. She saw him look back at Riku with a worried expression, but dismissed it. She took a glance to the sleeping girl on her shoulder and a few puzzle pieces were fit together in her mind. After making it back to the inn, Gaia set Riku on her bed and decided to let her stay here for the night since she didn't know where Riku was staying exactly. She went towards a Den Mushi and decided to call someone. "This is Lieutenant Commander Chaki. Who is this?" "Hey, this is Yumi." Gaia speaking. Gaia said a little softly. "Gaia? Oh, the one Riku mentioned. Yep, that's me. I have a few questions to ask Riku if that's alright with you?" The line went silent for a while. "Riku's out right now." "Out? What do you mean? Did she go to the beach or something?" Gaia asked, sounding like she had no clue what she was talking about. Chaki sighed. "I'm sorry Gaia, but Riku was kidnapped." "Kidnapped? By who?" Gaia tried to sound surprised, but it's hard for her to get surprised easily. "Apparently it's a pirate crew called the Straw Hat Pirates. If you see any of them, please contact the Marines right away." "Will do," Gaia said. She hung up the phone and sighed. Her green eyes trailed to the window, and she saw many colors of reds, oranges, yellows, and purples. The sun was setting and soon night would overtake the city. What was it with all these dreams she's been having? She found herself in the kitchen. Again? It was especially weird since this was the new dream that happened 2 nights ago. It was exactly the same. Someone was cooking on the stove and Riku was watching. The smell of food and blossoms waited under her nose. Except when Riku took a closer look at her surroundings, she was able to move her body freely. She took one step forward just like last time. The person turned around like last time and smiled. Riku closed her eyes waiting for the blinding light to bring her back to reality, but it never came. She slowly opened them and looked at the person standing next to her. Riku looked into their eyes. She could finally make out their features, the brown eyes that seemed to shine, and beautiful light brown silky hair. A smile that shone on their face seemed to make the room glow. "Are you hungry, Riku ne?" they asked her. She slowly nodded her head and seemed to realize something was off in that sentence. They poured her a warm bowl of soup and sat it down at the table that seemed to appear out of nowhere. "Why did you call me that?" Riku asked her with a serious tone. "Why? Because you're my sister, of course." They smiled again. "Sister? But I have no siblings. I don't have a sister." She started saying these things. Yet she didn't have the right to, because she really doesn't know. The hazel-haired person seemed to furrow their brows a little in confusion. "Are you okay?" They walked up to Riku and placed the back of their hand on her forehead. Riku felt warm energy flow into her body, same as before. She flinched, but the person didn't seem to mind. Everything started going blurry, her body moved on its own once again. Her words were silenced, as were the other person's. Her mouth moved to form words of their own. Her eyes widened at the sudden realization of what she had just said. Blackness overtook her body as she awoke on the bed in Gaia's room. She laid there for the longest time ever, staring at the ceiling, listening to the wind beat against the window, listening to Gaia's calm breathing. She didn't want to go back to bed, she didn't feel like it. After that dream she knew who that person was. Her body was wide awake now, as she planned on what to do next. After several minutes of tossing and turning, her mind set on something, making some pieces fit together petted. She would confront them tomorrow. "Oh, you're up, Riku? How are you feeling?" Gaia asked as she walked into the room to see the Commodore sitting up in the bed. "Better than ever. That was the best night's sleep I've had since a while." She lied as she moved her arm to show that she was all right. Gaia chuckled a little. "That's good, I'm going to go make breakfast." She walked into the small cooking area. "Okay," Riku said, getting up. After Gaia was done making breakfast, they sat down at the table to eat. "So Riku, how are the Marines doing?" Gaia asked. Riku was shocked to hear about that. She thought Gaia had figured out her secret. She thought she would have seen a smirk on Gaia's face, but instead the smile was kind of forced. Maybe she doesn't know. Riku thought. "They're doing just fine." Riku smiled. Even if Gaia did know the situation she was in, she was good at hiding it. How would she even figure it out though? Really? Where's your ship located? I couldn't seem to find it when you were unconscious. She asked after she took a bite of eggs, failing badly at trying to lie. My ship? Oh yeah, it's in repair. We heard about the good shipbuilders here and decided to take a stop. Oh ah ha 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 ha. She laughed awkwardly as she rubbed the back of her head, but Riku was too oblivious. In repair? I thought you told me you were here to do an important mission? She raised one of her eyebrows. Riku's eyes widened in response. Well, you see, the mission is to look at the time, gotta go. Thanks for everything. She ran out the door and kept running until she couldn't see the inn anymore. After Riku left, she missed the small smile on Gaia's lips, with her hands supporting her head. Riku's legs ended up taking her back to where Haruhi was staying. She walked up to the room and pulled out the spare key that she had been given and opened it. She breathed in the fragrant air, just as she thought. Walking to her bag of newly bought clothes, she opened it and picked out a black t-shirt with a white rose and vine on the corner of it and then pulled out dark skinny jeans. Changing into her new clothes, she walked over to the shelf with a large mirror on it. They looked and fit perfectly fine. In the corner of her eyes she saw a picture. It caught her attention because it was sitting next to the mirror, all by itself. Carefully picking it up by the frame, little particles of dust flew into the air. She looked at it and saw two girls. They were about the same size, but she could tell one was the older one, while the other was the younger one. Riku guessed that the one with light brown hair that smiled brightly at the camera while waving was Haruhi. The younger one was the one with darker brown hair, and she too smiled but had an arm around her sister's head. Riku stared at the younger one for a while because something didn't feel right. Then, it all clicked together. That girl was her. Then that must mean Haruhi Yuki was her sister. The Mizu Mizu Cafe. She paused in the doorway and sucked in a big breath of air and walked into the cafe. When she spotted Haruhi behind the counter, she walked up to it. Yuki, are you busy right now? Riku asked her with a serious tone. No, what is it? Haruhi tilted her head towards, a little confused as to why Riku was acting weird. Riku closed her eyes. Do you mind if I order some food? Of course. Haruhi went into the kitchen and whipped up an omelet. When she was done, she brought it out to Riku, who was already sitting at a table near the window, far away from the other customers. Here you go. Was that all you need? Haruhi placed the tray down. Quickly Riku started eating. She didn't get to finish her food she got from Gaia since the escape, and running used up her energy. I'm glad you like it. Well, I have to go take care of other customers, so I'll see you soon. Haruhi started walking off. Wait. Riku's voice caused Haruhi to stop. I need to ask you something. Haruhi slowly closed her eyes as if in thought. Then she turned back around and sat in the chair across from Riku. Yes. Riku pushed an empty plate away and leaned in a little closer as if not wanting anyone to listen to their conversation. Do I remind you of someone? Haruhi was a little taken back by this. Well, now that you mention it. Who? Oh, well, I had a sister a while back. Riku sat there silently thinking. It seemed possible. The person in her dream had shown Haruhi, a younger version though. The person in her dream looked 9, while in she felt like she was 7. How old are you? 19. Exact age as it should be. Silence enveloped the two as they sat in their own thoughts. It was Riku who first broke it. Where's your sister now? Haruhi's mood changed at the sudden mention of her sister. Her face fell and her eyes seemed to have found interest in the wooden table. Riku thought she saw a tear starting to form, but it was gone. As if it was never there. The atmosphere seemed to grow cold. The smiling sun now set into the gloomy moon. She smiled just a little though, as though she was reminiscing about her sister. She looked up to meet Riku's eyes. Right now, I bet she would be out scavenging the sea for adventure. Looking for perils on the Grand Line. Getting into fights she's not supposed to be getting into. She chuckled and looked out the window and up at the sky. Tears started to form, as she bit her lip and repressed the urge to break down. Haruhi, what if I was to tell you that I was your sister? Haruhi looked at her, then brought her head down, her bangs covering her eyes, making them shadowed. That's impossible. Why? Because she died 7 years ago. Even though Riku couldn't see her eyes, she saw tears hitting the table. Yet Riku persisted. It was her only chance to maybe know something about her past. But I am her. I am your sister, That girl in the picture in your room is me, Riku shouted. No, no, you're not her. Stop it, Haruhi covered her eyes as her tears were falling hard now. She died. Right in front of my eyes, Haruhi ran out of the cafe crying. Riku stood up to stop her, but it was already too late, she was out the door in seconds. Why wouldn't she believe me? I stood there staring at the door as if Haruhi was going to come back in and yell. Surprise! Did I scare you? I always knew you were my sister, but no one came back. Damn! I better go look for her. I ran out the door. Yuki-san! Yuki-san! I shouted as I ran down the streets. No signs of her. How far could she have gone? I stopped at many stalls and asked for a girl that looks like me, but with lighter brown hair and older. A lot say that they remember her, but haven't seen her at all today. Have you seen a girl run by? Her name is Haruhi Yuki. Do you know her by any chance? I stopped and asked an old man running a fruit stall. Yuki? Yeah, she's the girl that helps me run my errands. Why do you need to know? He asked me curiously. She ran off, and I'm looking for her, I quickly said, not wanting to give out any more details than that. I thought I saw someone that looked like her run towards the train, but it couldn't be her, he said as he looked up to the sky as if in deep thought. I bet that if he had a beard, he would be stroking it right now. Impatiently I tapped my foot, waiting for him to say more, but he didn't. How do you know it's not her? I almost shouted out the sentence but caught myself, and said it casually. Because Yuki is a smart girl who knows that the Aqua Laguna is tonight, and it would be dangerous to go anywhere near the station. My body went still for a few moments, my breath caught short. Thanks, I yelled running towards the station. Be careful, he shouted after me seeing as I was going in the direction of the station. I was crying, and I knew it. It was rude of me to run off like that, but I couldn't stop. She wouldn't stop. I ran and took every turn possible. I didn't care where I was going, as long as it's not there. When Riku started mentioning my sister, it brought back those happy memories. Here's sadness. As I sat there with Riku, the scene kept replaying in my head, when my sister was shot and right in front of me, her body falling to the ground slowly, the blood gushing out of the bullet wound, the strange men taking her away. She didn't even get a proper funeral. As I ran, everything I passed became a blur. I couldn't see anymore because of the tears in my eyes. Several times I tried to wipe them away, but they would keep coming back. When I finally stopped to catch my breath and wipe the tears, I saw I was at the train station entrance. I tilted my head. How did I get here? I asked myself. Ahead of me, I saw a lot of Marines and people in black suits. I could only catch one word from them because they were still quite a few feet away and the word was CP9. Then I noticed a group of 4 walking down the aisle created by the Marines. They looked kind of frightening, one of which was a large man carrying 2 sacks. But when I looked closer, I could hear yelling from the sacks. Talking sacks? I asked myself. Then I noticed 2 heads coming from each. Those are people. Hey! I stepped out and shouted all of a sudden, unsure why. The people turned to look at me. I froze in place. What do you think you're doing? The Aqua Laguna is coming tonight. It's dangerous? The 4 people in the middle just stared at me. Then I saw the girl disappear all of a sudden, and I felt the smooth hand of someone hitting my neck as I slowly felt myself losing conscious. The dawning sky turned black with clouds, the rain creating large ripples in the water, and blurring her vision. By the time Riku reached the station, she could see the train starting to move. Yuki-san. Riku stopped in her tracks and swiftly pressed her back against the wall as she saw a group of Marines and an unconscious body on a man's shoulder. The man went in first with Yuki on his shoulders. Behind him was a woman and another man with a long nose. Usopp, Riku thought, but when she took a closer look, it wasn't him. Last was a larger man carrying 2 bodies squirming on his shoulders. Her eyes widened as she recognized one of them immediately. Usopp. Just as the man got in, the train started to depart, slowly moving. Wait. Realizing that she was just standing there, she ran out into the open, but someone was already ahead of her walking to the train. Riku slowed as she analyzed the figure. In a black suit, Sanji quickly grabbed onto the train as it started to accelerate and climbed onto the cart. Riku slowed to a stop knowing that she wouldn't be able to catch it in time, and also because she was shocked when she found out it was. Wait, she heard someone shout. Quickly she turned around and ran into someone. "Ow!" the girl cried. Riku opened her eyes, recognizing the voice. Nami, no answer. Listening and tuning out the sound of the waves, she could hear sniffling. Hey, Nami? Fast footsteps filled Riku's ears, getting closer and closer. Turning around, she was ready to face whoever it was. The man stopped in front of her and Nami and looked towards Nami. After a while he looked up and past them. Riku followed his gaze. "You departed really early," he stated to the two men hiding, and they started talking about the waves and how it was getting dangerous. Riku shut her eyes, pondering the thought of why Nami could be so sad. They departed early? Was it because Usopp was on there? But why would he even be on there? He doesn't even have a wanted poster yet. But then again, Nami doesn't seem like the type to give up so easily. Opening one eye, she could see Nami's body shake as if from anger. Riku smirked and watched as Nami burst out about wanting to go after them. "Hey, lend me a ship," Nami asked, yet commanded to the man now figured out as Polly. "In this kind of sea?" Polly asked. Soon enough the two started arguing, which Riku blanked out for a while. No one seemed to notice her there anyways. "Robin threw her life away for us." Riku seemed to come back to earth. "Robin? What happened to Robin?" Riku asked. Nami turned to her. "She was on that train that just left. She turned herself into the government," Nami shouted. "Nico Ro," Riku started, but she felt the vibration of the ground. Looking at Polly, she noticed his gaze was behind them. Hurriedly he grabbed Nami and the two guys. Riku started slightly ahead of them, telling him that she knew what was coming. Reaching safety, everyone was hit with water and was breathing harshly. "Thank you," Nami said. Then looking around she noticed something was off. "Huh? Where did Riku go?" "Weapons shop." "Weapons shop? Where the heck is it?" "Hey, get out of here. It's dangerous, go back." I ignored the screams of warning from the men as I ran by. I ran into the now empty marketplace and immediately ran to where I remember seeing a shop full of weapons. I stopped at the boarded-up building and punched down the wooded-up door. There were shelves of guns, knives, and bullets. Swords hung on racks on the store walls, and the cash register was taken from its original spot on the desk. Getting to work quickly, I grabbed a bag from behind the counter and filled it with many things. Some I probably wasn't going to use or I didn't even know how to use. But you never know when something will come in handy. I picked up and threw 2 guns, a few boxes of bullets, 2 daggers, a random chain, and a long bow with arrows into my bag and ran out the store. I wonder if I should pay for these things. I asked myself, but quickly shook the thought off. Later, not now. I wondered if there was anything else I was going to need. First I needed a way to get to Eni's lobby, secondly, weapons, and thirdly. Then quickly turning down the road of the market I broke into 2 other shops. Riku made her way to the top of the stairs where she was told from Gaia, where she was supposed to go during the Aqua Laguna. The water as high as some houses already. "Look, there's someone here," someone shouted. Soon people came over asking if she was alright. Most of her clothes were soaked while her breathing was fast and heavy. She fell down onto her butt and just nodded to whatever people said to her. As she spotted Gaia near the edge looking out, she slowly pushed off the ground and dragged herself over to her. The citizens and Galila company workers tried to stop her from any more movement, but she just pushed past them. But soon everyone's attention was on the red-headed girl who went running down the stairs and jumping roofs. Riku watched too. She dropped her bags. Should she help? Looking ahead to Nami's destination, she saw Straw Hat stuck between 2 buildings. She bit her lip. Damn that Straw Hat. "Wait up, reindeer. Not you too." She heard a man shout, and when she looked down towards the stairs she saw Chopper 2 running down, but he wasn't headed in the same direction as Nami. She counted off the members. Nico, Robin, Usopp, and Sanji are all on the train. Straw Hat is between 2 buildings. That leaves Roronoa Zoro. She should help them. Nami and Chopper aren't bad people. They don't deserve to die. Yet they were pirates, and as a marine she should just let them. Gaia felt Riku shift uneasily next to her and looked over to her only to see a pale face, one that told her Riku didn't know what to do, that she was torn between 2 things. Nami had finally made it to Luffy, and she shouted things to him, but the voice was only audible to him because it would be swept away by the wind and rain. Chopper had also made it to Zoro and was trying to pull him out of a chimney. The wave was large and coming from all sides. They weren't going to make it. Riku watched as Luffy pushed the two building apart, her eyes widening suddenly. Quickly she looked over to the swordsman, and he had broken out of the chimney. After a while, she smirked just a little. She seemed to have underestimated them. After Gaia saw that smirk, she knew Riku was fine and pulled her away from the edge and towards the stairs. They had all made it to the stairs and people how they were safe. A large wave came and hit them fast. Riku and Gaia stood at the top of the stairs. As the waves were pulling back, Polly had ropes that went into the ocean holding onto them. The ropes had started to slip, but he tightened his grip and yanked them out. At the same time the wave came in for another hit. They all dashed to the top. Zoro carried Chopper, and Luffy carried Nami. The water breaking through the concrete bridge. They all fell to their knees and back when they made it to the top. The water had broken the last of the stairs and flung a large piece of debris through the air. No one noticed it, but by the time they did it was going to crush them. They didn't have the energy to move. Riku, Gaia. The two shouted each other's names at the same time and looked at each other. Riku jumped into the air and casually landed on a hand that was waiting for her. Gaia pulled back her arm and threw Riku towards the rock. Sadly Gaia's aim was not the best, so Riku was a little far off right. Riku reached out her left arm and barely managed to grab the falling debris. She pulled herself closer to it, quickly positioned herself in a crouch underneath it and kicked it outward away from her with both feet so it went in a different direction. Landing next to the crew, she looked over to Straw Hat and there he was grinning at her. "What? It's not like I did it for you. More for Nami and Chopper," Riku said looking away. "Thank you Riku, you're coming with us to go get Robin, right?" he asked still smiling. Riku wanted to say yes because if they were going to go get Robin, chances were she could get a ride to get Haruhi. "Luffy, she's a marine, remember? You don't think she would go up against her own, would you?" Zoro asked. "Yep," he said happy. Then looked at Riku, but she was already gone. She had left after Zoro's sentence. But that didn't mean she had given up on getting Yuki. "Gaia, can I ask you a favor?" Riku asked as she made her way to Gaia and her newly bought supplies. She was just missing one thing. "What is it? Can I borrow a few bandages? I have a small fight coming up."